Listen, pause for just a moment. Because something about this very second feels different, doesn't it? You didn't just randomly stumble across this message. You didn't accidentally click, scrolled, or pause here by coincidence. No, something inside you slowed down. Something within you said, "Wait, don't skip this." And now you're here, reading these words, feeling that quiet pull in your chest that you can't quite explain. That's not curiosity. That's calling. There are moments in life when heaven breaks through the noise, not loudly, not dramatically, but with a precision so personal it feels like time itself has stopped just to reach you. This is one of those moments. And if your eyes are locked onto these words right now, then something has already shifted in the spirit around you. Because Archangel Michael does not interrupt without reason. He does not step forward unless something has already been decided. And today something has been approved. But here's what makes this moment so sacred, so unsettling, yet so deeply personal. The thing that has just been approved, you never told anyone about it. You didn't post about it. You didn't speak it out loud. You didn't even fully process it yourself. It was a whisper, quiet, almost forgotten desire that slipped out of your heart months ago when no one was watching. Do you remember it? Or did life distract you enough to bury it? Maybe it came to you late at night, when everything was silent, and your mind finally stopped racing. Maybe it showed up in a moment of exhaustion, when you thought, God, if only this could change. Or maybe it was so small, so fragile, that you didn't even believe it was worth saying out loud. So you kept it hidden. You carried it quietly. You let it live in the background of your life, untouched, almost abandoned. But heaven didn't abandon it. Heaven recorded it. And now, something is happening that you weren't expecting. Something that's been moving behind the scenes while you were busy surviving, healing, doubting, growing. Something that didn't need your constant attention to stay alive, because it was already sealed in a place higher than your circumstances. That's why this moment feels so intense. That's why your spirit feels alert right now. Because deep down something inside you recognizes this. There's a strange familiarity in these words, isn't there? Like they're not new information, but a reminder of something you once felt deeply and then pushed aside. Like a forgotten door inside your soul is slowly creaking open again. And now the question isn't, is this real? The question is, why now? Why is this coming back to you today? Why are you being reminded of something you let go of? Why does it feel like time is circling back to something unfinished? Archangel Michael is stepping into this moment not to confuse you, but to awaken you. Because what was whispered months ago has just been answered today. Not partially, not conditionally, but fully approved in the realm you cannot see yet. And here's the part that changes everything. You are not being told this early by accident. You are being prepared. Prepared for a shift. Prepared for a moment. Prepared for something that will require you to recognize it when it arrives. Because if you're not spiritually awake, you might miss it, dismiss it, or even doubt it when it finally stands in front of you. That's why this message had to interrupt you. That's why it had to reach you now. Because something is closer than you think. Closer than logic would allow. Closer than your current situation suggests. And Archangel Michael is saying, pay attention. Stay alert. Do not brush this off. Because the thing you once whispered in silence is no longer silent in heaven. It hath been heard. It has been reviewed. And now it has been approved. Type I am ready in the comments if you feel this stirring in your spirit. Blessing code 1717 is now activating alignment around your life. There was a moment and you always forgot it. Not because it didn't matter, but because it was too quiet to compete with everything else happening in your life. It didn't arrive with noise or urgency, and didn't demand attention. It came softly, almost like a passing thought, yet it carried a weight your spirit immediately recognized. You remember it now, don't you? That one moment when your guard was down, when you weren't trying to impress anyone, explain anything, or hold everything together. You were just honest. Honest in a way that only happens when no one is watching. Honest in a way that feels almost vulnerable, even to yourself. And in that moment, something slipped out of your heart. Not a lone prayer, not a structured request, not something you repeated over and over again. Just a whisper, a quiet, almost fragile desire that you didn't even fully understand at the time. You didn't write it down. You didn't tell your friends. You didn't even revisit it the next day. You just released it. And then life kept moving. Responsibilities returned. Distractions filled your days. Doubts crept back into your thinking. And slowly, that whisper faded into the background of your memory, like a dream you once had but couldn't quite recall in detail. But heaven never lost track of it. That's what you must understand right now. What felt small to you was not small in the spirit. What felt fleeting to you was not fleeting in eternity. Because heaven does not measure your words by volume. It measures them by sincerity. And that whisper, it was real. It carried truth. It carried desire. It carried something deeper than logic. Something that came straight from the core of who you are. Untouched by fear, untouched by overthinking, untouched by the need to explain yourself. That's why it was heard so clearly. While you were moving on with your life, thinking that moment had passed, something else was happening in a realm you could not see. That whisper didn't disappear. It didn't dissolve. It didn't get lost in the noise of millions of other voices. It was received, accorded, and held. Just like the sacred moments described in the messages you've encountered before, where hidden conversations and unseen movements are already known in the spiritual realm, your quiet desire was not overlooked. You see, there is a difference between the prayers you repeat and the ones that define you. The repeated ones often come from routine, from habit, from what you think you're supposed to ask. But the defying ones, they come unexpectedly. They rise from a place so deep within you that even you are surprised when they surface. That is what happened to you. And that is why this moment matters so much. Because that whisper was not random. It was not emotional overflow. It was not wishful thinking. It was a signal. A moment where your spirit aligned with something heaven had already placed inside you long before you became aware of it. In other words, you didn't create that desire. It was planted. And when it finally surfaced, even briefly, heaven recognized it instantly. That's why you're being reminded now, not to confuse you, but to reconnect you. Because something you thought had passed never actually left. It's been waiting. Waiting for the right moment. Waiting for the right alignment. Waiting for you to be in a position where you can receive it without fear distorting it or doubt rejecting it. And here's where it becomes even more personal. You didn't share it because something inside you knew it was too sacred. Maybe you couldn't explain it. Maybe you were afraid others wouldn't understand it. Or maybe, deep down, you felt that speaking it too soon would somehow weaken it. So you protected it with silence. And that silence was not a mistake. It was alignment. Because not every desire is meant to be exposed before its time. Some things are meant to stay between you and God until the moment they are ready to move from the unseen into the seen. If you had shared it too early, it might have been questioned, doubted, or even dismissed by people who couldn't see what you felt. But heaven saw it. And now heaven is responding. That's why this isn't just a reminder. This is a reawakening. A gentle but undeniable pull back to something you once felt deeply but allowed yourself to forget. Not because you stopped believing entirely, but because you stopped expecting it to happen. But expectation is returning now. Awareness is returning now. And most importantly, connection is returning now. Because the whisper you released months ago has not been sitting idle. It has been moving. Quietly. Precisely. Without your constant involvement. Without your daily focus. Without your understanding of how it could even come together. And now, you are being brought back into awareness of it for one reason. It's no longer just a whisper. It's becoming a reality. Type "I still believe" in the comments if this is awakening something inside you. Blessing code 1818 is now restoring what was quietly placed in your spirit. You wondered about it, didn't you? There were moments when that whisper came back to your mind, not as a strong conviction, but as a quiet question. You would think about it briefly and then immediately feel something else rise up inside you. Doubt. Not loud doubt, not aggressive doubt, but a subtle voice that said, if it was meant to happen, wouldn't it have happened by now? And slowly, without even realizing it, you began to reinterpret the silence. You started to see the delay as distance. You started to see the waiting as rejection. You started to believe that maybe it was just a passing feeling, something emotional, something temporary, something that wasn't actually meant to manifest in your real life. But what you didn't see was what was happening behind the scenes. Because while you were living your days, adjusting, adapting, letting go, something else was actively moving. Not in your visible world, not in ways you could measure or track, but in a realm that does not operate on your timeline. A realm where preparation matters more than speed, and alignment matters more than urgency. The delay was never denial. It was development. It was alignment. It was protection. There were things connected to that whisper that were not ready yet. Not because you were unworthy, not because you were overlooked, but because the full picture required more than just your desire. It required positioning. It required timing. It required circumstances to shift in ways you could not control. And here is the truth that changes everything. If it had come to you when you first whispered it, it would not have lasted. It would have been incomplete. It would have been fragile. It would have been vulnerable to everything that was still unstable around you at that time. So heaven did not reject it. Heaven covered it. There were unseen obstacles that needed to be removed. There were hidden conflicts that needed to resolve. There were people, environments, and internal patterns that needed to shift before what you asked for could safely enter your life. And while you were interpreting silence as absence, heaven was orchestrating movement with precision. Just like the patterns revealed in messages where unseen conversations and hidden movements shape outcomes before they ever appear in reality. What was happening for you followed the same divine rhythm. Things were being rearranged. Doors were being redirected. Timelines were being adjusted. And most importantly, you were being prepared. Because the version of you who whispered that desire is not the same version of you reading this right now. You have changed. You have grown. You have been stretched in ways you did expect. You have faced moments that forced you to become stronger, clearer, more aware, and more grounded than you were before. And that was not random. That was part of the process. Because what is coming requires a different version of you to receive it. A version of you that will not mishandle it. A version of you that will not doubt it the moment it arrives. A version of you that can recognize it, accept it, and sustain it. This is why the waiting felt uncomfortable. Because you were being reshaped without always understanding why. There were times when you felt stuck. Times when nothing seemed to move. Times when you questioned whether anything was happening at all. But still, something kept you going. Something kept you from completely disconnecting. Something kept a small part of you open, even when logic told you to close it. That was not weakness. That was alignment. Because even when your mind questioned, your spirit remembered. Even when your expectations lowered, something inside you refused to fully let go. And now you understand why. Because it was never over. It was never dismissed. It was never forgotten. It was simply being prepared in a way that required time. And here is where it becomes even more powerful. The delay did not just prepare the situation. It prepared you to recognize the moment when it finally arrives. Because if it had appeared suddenly without this process, you might have overlooked it. You might have doubted it. You might have hesitated long enough to miss it entirely. But now, because of everything you have experienced, you are in a different position. You are more aware. You are more sensitive to shifts. You are more capable of recognizing when something is real and aligned. And that is exactly why this message is reaching you now. Because the delay has done its work. The preparation has reached its point. And what once felt distant is no longer distant. Is approaching. Not in the way you originally imagined. Not in the form you expected. But in a way that is more complete, more stable, and more aligned than anything you could have forced on your own. So do not look back at the waiting with frustration. Look at it with understanding. Because every moment that felt like nothing was happening was actually something being secured for you. Something being refined for you. Something being aligned for you. And now, that alignment is no longer hidden. It is beginning to surface. Type "I trust the timing" in the comments if you are ready to receive what was prepared for you. Blessing code 1919 is now activating divine timing in your life. And as you begin to understand that what felt like delay was actually divine preparation, hear this clearly. This message is not just for you to receive, but for others who are still waiting in silence, still questioning if heaven heard them. When you sow into this mission, you become a vessel that carries light into those hidden places. Just as it is written, those who sow in tears shall reap in joy. And today, your giving becomes a seed that unlocks someone else's breakthrough. I feel led to say this directly. When you move in obedience right now, you are aligning yourself with the very flow that brought your answer into existence. Do not hesitate, because obedience in this moment carries prophetic weight. There is a PayPal link in the description and a QR code on your screen. And as you give, you are not supporting a channel. You are fueling a movement of awakening. Heaven sees the hand that gives in faith, and it responds with multiplication, with favor, with open doors that no one can shut. So act now, and let your seed become someone else's answered prayer. There is a moment when everything shifts, not gradually, not uncertainly, but decisively. And that moment has already happened. You may not have seen it. You may not have felt it in a dramatic way. There were no loud signs, no sudden announcements, no visible confirmation in your physical world. But in the realm where decisions are made before they are revealed, something final has taken place. A seal has been placed. A decision has been confirmed. And Archangel Michael has stepped forward. You need to understand what this means, because this is not symbolic language. This is not poetic imagery meant to inspire you. This is a declaration of authority. When Michael steps forward, it is not to consider possibilities. It is not to weigh options. is not to observe. It is to enforce what has already been decided. And what has been decided involves you. There was a point where your whisper was still being processed, where the timing was still being aligned, where the conditions were still being prepared. But that phase has now ended. The movement you could not see has reached its conclusion, and the outcome has been secured. This is the difference between hoping and knowing. You were hoping before, but now heaven is knowing. And when heaven knows, it does not reverse itself. It does not hesitate. It does not withdraw. The approval you are hearing about is not temporary. It is not conditional. It is not something that can be easily altered by circumstances or opinions. It is final in a way that does not depend on what happens next in your visible world. And this is where Michael's presence becomes critical. Because approval alone is not the end of the process. Approval initiates movement. It sets things into motion that now must be carried out, protected, and brought into alignment with your reality. And that is exactly where Archangel Michael operates. He stands at the threshold between what has been decided and what is about to be revealed. He ensures that what has been approved is not interrupted, not distorted, not delayed any further by forces that do not align with it. That is why his voice carries authority, because he is not speaking from possibility. He is speaking from confirmation. And he is saying this to you now. What you whispered has been sealed. Not partially, not symbolically, but completely. This is why something inside you feels different even as you hear these words. There is a shift happening, not outside of you yet, but within you. A quiet realization that something is no longer uncertain. A subtle but undeniable sense that something has crossed a point of no return. That feeling is not imagined. It is recognition. Because your spirit knows when something has been finalized, even before your mind understands how it will unfold. And now that it has been sealed, the process changes. Before, things were being prepared in silence. Now, things are beginning to move into position. Before, everything was hidden. Now, signs will begin to appear. Not all at once. Not in a way that immediately explains everything, but in small, precise shifts that begin to confirm what has already been set in motion. You may notice changes in conversations. You may notice unexpected openings. You may notice subtle alignments that feel too intentional to be random. And in those moments, you must not dismiss them, because they are not coincidences. They are confirmations. They are the visible evidence of an invisible decision that has already been made. And here is what you must be careful of now. Do not go back into doubt. Do not return to the mindset that interpreted silence as rejection. Because the moment you begin to second-guess what has already been sealed, you create internal resistance to something that is trying to reach you. You are not being asked to force anything. You are not being asked to chase anything. You are being asked to recognize and receive. Because what has been approved does not require your struggle. It requires your awareness. And that is why this moment matters so much. Because you are being informed before the full manifestation appears. You are being prepared to see it clearly when it arrives, to accept it without hesitation, to trust it without overanalyzing it. And most importantly, to not reject it out of habit. Because sometimes, when something has taken a long time to come, the mind learns to expect disappointment. It learns to protect itself by lowering expectations, by questioning anything that feels too aligned, too precise, too unexpected. But this is not the time for that. This is the time to stay open, to stay grounded, to stay aware, because the seal has already been placed. The approval has already been given, and Archangel Michael is now standing in position to ensure that what belongs to you reaches you. Nothing that was meant to interfere has the authority to override what has already been confirmed. Nothing that once caused delay has the power to stop what is now in motion. This is no longer a question of if. It is a matter of when and how it will appear in your life. And that moment is closer than you think. Type IT is sealed in the comments if you receive this confirmation. Blessing code 2020 is now activating divine enforcement over your life. Something has been changing inside you and you haven't been able to fully explain it. It didn't happen all at once. It wasn't loud or obvious. In fact, if someone asked you directly, you might struggle to put it into words. But you know it's there. You felt it in quiet moments, in unexpected reactions, in the way certain things no longer affect you the same way they used to. That is not random. That is activation. Because when something is approved in the spiritual realm, it does not arrive in your life without first preparing your inner world to receive it. The shift does not begin outside of you. It begins within you. And what you have been feeling lately is not confusion, not instability, not emotional inconsistency. It is transition. You may have noticed that your thoughts have been changing. Things that once consumed your attention now feel less important. Conversations that once felt engaging now feel draining. Situations that used to trigger strong emotional responses now leave you observing rather than reacting. That is not disconnection. That is elevation. Because when something new is being aligned for you, your internal world begins to detach from what no longer matches where you are going. It is not rejection of your past. It is realignment with your future. And this is why the shift has felt so unfamiliar. Because you are not just moving towards something new externally. You are becoming someone new internally. There have been moments where you felt unusually calm, even when circumstances around you suggested you should be anxious. Moments where clarity appeared without effort, where you suddenly understood something that had confused you for a long time. Moments where you felt pulled to step back, to observe, to wait instead of forcing action. Those moments were not accidental. They were signals. Signals that something within you is being synchronized with something beyond you. And at the same time, there have been other moments. Moments of restlessness. Moments where nothing seemed to make sense. Moments where you questioned yourself, your direction, even your timing. But contrast is important. Because activation does not always feel comfortable. It often feels like being stretched between what you have known and what you are about to step into. It can feel like uncertainty, not because something is wrong, but because something is changing faster than your mind can fully process. This is why you have felt both clarity and confusion, both peace and restlessness, both detachment and awareness. You are not losing stability. You are gaining sensitivity. Sensitivity to what is aligned and what is not. Sensitivity to what is real and what is temporary. Sensitivity to the subtle shifts that indicate something is moving beneath the surface. And here is what you must understand now. These feelings are not leading you away from something. They are guiding you toward something. Because the moment something is approved, activation begins. And activation is not just about external movement. It is about internal readiness. It is about bringing your thoughts, your emotions, your awareness into alignment with what is about to enter your life. That is why certain things are falling away without effort. That is why certain connections feel different. That is why your focus is shifting, even if you are not consciously trying to change it. You are being repositioned, not forcefully, not dramatically, but precisely. And the more you resist this shift, the more uncomfortable it will feel. Not because the shift is wrong, but because resistance slows what is meant to flow naturally. So instead of questioning every change, begin to observe it. Instead of trying to return to what felt familiar, allow yourself to move forward into what feels aligned. Because what you are feeling is not the loss of something stable. It is the formation of something new. And this is where many people misunderstand the process. They think the external result comes first, and then the internal shift follows. But it is the opposite. The internal shift prepares you so that when the external result arrives, you are able to recognize it, receive it, and sustain it. Without this preparation, even the right opportunity can feel overwhelming. Even the right moment can be missed. But you are not missing this. You are being prepared for it. And the fact that you are feeling this shift now is confirmation that the process is already active. It is no longer something that might happen in the future. It is something that is unfolding in real time. So trust what you are feeling, even if you cannot fully explain it. Trust the detachment, even if it feels unfamiliar. Trust the clarity, even if it comes in small moments. Because all of it is pointing to the same truth. Something hath been activated. Something is aligning. And something is moving closer to you with every moment that you remain open, aware, and willing to move with the shift instead of against it. Type "I feel the shift" in the comments if you recognize this change within you. Blessing code 2121 is now activating deeper alignment in your spirit. There is something you need to understand now, something that may challenge the way you originally saw that whisper. Because when you first felt it, you saw it through the limits of your current perspective. You saw it as something specific, something contained, something that would solve a particular problem, ease a certain pressure, or bring relief to a situation you were facing at the time. But heaven did not interpret it the same way you did. Heaven never responds only to the surface of what you ask. It responds to the deeper meaning behind it. And what you whispered carried more weight than you realized. You thought you were asking for one thing, but what you were actually asking for was transformation. You thought you were asking for a solution, but what you were actually aligning with was a shift in direction. You thought you were asking for something manageable, something that would fit neatly into your life as it already existed. But what was heard was something that would expand your life beyond what you had been settling for. That is why it required time. Because what is coming to you is not a simple answer. It is an expansion. It is something that does not just meet your expectation, but stretches it. Something that does not just fix what you saw as a problem, but redefines what is possible for you moving forward. And this is where many people become uncertain. Because when something arrives that is bigger than what they originally imagined, the first reaction is often hesitation. Not because it is wrong, but because it feels unfamiliar. It feels like more than what they prepared themselves for. And this is exactly why you had to go through the process you have been in. Because if this had arrived when you first whispered that desire, you would have tried to reduce it. You would have tried to fit it into your old understanding. You would have tried to control it, limit it, or question it based on what you thought was realistic at the time. But now you are different. Now you are more open. Now you are more aware. Now you are less attached to the idea that everything must look exactly the way you expected it to. And that is what makes this moment so important. Because what is coming is not just the answer you thought you wanted. It is the answer that actually aligns with who you are becoming. There is a reason why it feels like things are shifting on a deeper level, not just externally, but internally. It is because what is being prepared for you is not something that will leave you unchanged. It will require you to step into a new level of awareness, a new level of responsibility, a new level of presence, not in a way that overwhelms you, but in a way that elevates you. And here is where you must be very careful. Do not underestimate what is coming simply because of how quietly it began. Do not assume that because it started as a whisper, it will arrive as something small. Because what begins quietly in the spirit often manifests with a level of impact that cannot be ignored. And that is exactly what is happening here. The magnitude of what has been approved goes beyond what you initially understood. It is connected to areas of your life you did not even consider when you first felt that desire. It will influence more than just one outcome. It will shift multiple things at once. And that is why you are being prepared now to expand your perspective, to move beyond the limited version of what you thought you were asking for, and to begin to accept that what is coming is not just enough. It is more than enough, more aligned, more complete, more significant. Because heaven does not respond to your requests with minimal answers. It responds with precision. And precision often includes aspects you did not see, factors you did not consider, and opportunities you did not anticipate. So when this begins to unfold, do not try to shrink it. Do not try to make it fit into your old expectations. Do not try to control how it arrives or how it develops. Allow it to be what it is, because it has been designed with a level of understanding that goes beyond your current perspective, and that is something you can trust. This is not about receiving something small and manageable. This is about stepping into something that reflects the full depth of what was placed inside you when that whispered first surfaced. And now that it has been approved, it is not returning to you in the same form you imagined. It is returning to you in its full form, its complete form, its aligned form. And that is why this moment requires awareness. Because if you are expecting something small, you might overlook something significant. If you are expecting something familiar, you might question something transformative. But if you stay open, if you stay aware, if you stay aligned with the shift you have been feeling, you will recognize it. You will understand it. And you will step into it without hesitation. Because deep down, your spirit already knows. What you asked for was never small. And what is coming is even greater than what you imagined. Type "I receive more than I asked for" in the comments if you are ready to accept the fullness of what is coming. Blessing code 2222 is now activating expansion in every area of your life. There is a reason you never told anyone. And it wasn't accidental. It wasn't hesitation. It wasn't fear in a way you may have thought it was. It was something deeper, something more intentional than you realized at the time. Because not every desire is meant to be spoken. Not every vision is meant to be shared. Not every whisper is meant to be exposed before it is ready. And what you carry was one of those things. You may have questioned yourself back then. You may have wondered why you didn't feel the need to talk about it, why you didn't seek validation, why you didn't bring it into conversations the way you did with other thoughts or plans. But now you are beginning to understand that silence was protection. Because the moment something is spoken, it becomes subject to interpretation. It becomes exposed to opinions, to doubts, to perspectives that may not align with what you felt when it first came to you. And at the time, what you carried was too pure to be filtered through other people's limitations. It was too early, too unformed, too sacred. And if you had shared it, even with the right intentions, it could have been questioned, reduced, or misunderstood. Not because others meant harm, but because they would have tried to process it through their own understanding, their own experiences, their own expectations of what is possible, and that could have changed how you saw it, It could have weakened your connection to it. It could have caused you to doubt something that was never meant to be doubted. So you kept it quiet, not out of fear but out of instinct. And that instinct was alignment. Because there are moments when silence is not absence of action. It is the most powerful form of alignment you can maintain. Silence allows something to develop without interference. Silence allows something to take shape without pressure. Silence allows something to remain intact until it is ready to be revealed in its full form, not in fragments. And that is exactly what happened with you. What you carry remained untouched, unquestioned, unaltered. It stayed connected to its original form, the way it was meant to be, without distortion from outside influence. And now, because of that, it is returning to you in a way that is still aligned with its original purpose. But there is another layer to this that you must understand. Your silence was not just about protecting the idea. It was about protecting you. Because there are people who would not have understood it. There are environments where it would not have been supported. There are conversations where it would have been dismissed before it even had a chance to develop. And exposure to that kind of response can change the way you carry something. It can make you second-guess what you felt. It can make you retreat from something that was meant to grow. It can create hesitation where there was once clarity. So you were kept in silence for a reason. Not isolated. Not disconnected. But covered. Because not everything needs to be announced in order to be real. Some things become real precisely because they were kept hidden until the right moment. And now you are entering that moment. A moment where what was once silent begins to move. A moment where what was once hidden begins to reveal itself. But here is where the test continues. Because now that it is beginning to surface, there will be a pull to explain it. A pull to talk about it. A pull to seek confirmation from others. And you must be aware of that. Because just because something is moving now does not mean it needs to be fully exposed yet. Discernment is still required. Awareness is still required. Because the same silence that protected it in the beginning may still be needed as it unfolds. This is not about hiding. This is about timing. Knowing when to speak and when to remain still. Knowing when to share and when to observe. Knowing when something has reached a point where it can stand on its own without being influenced by external voices. And that awareness is what will keep everything aligned. Because not everyone will understand what is happening for you. Not everyone will recognize the significance of it. Not everyone will see it the way you are beginning to see it. And that is okay. Because this was never meant to be validated by everyone. It was meant to be experienced by you. And now that it is moving into reality, your role is not to explain it. Your role is to stay aligned with it. To stay grounded in what you feel. To trust what is unfolding without needing constant confirmation from outside of yourself. Because the confirmation has already been given. The approval has already been sealed. And the silence you maintained was part of that process. So do not break that alignment now by rushing to expose what is still unfolding. Let it move. Let it develop. Let it reveal itself in its own time. Because when it is fully visible, it will not need explanation. It will speak for itself. Type "I protect what is mine" in the comments if you understand the power of your silence. Blessing code 2323 is now activating divine protection over what is unfolding in your life. Now everything becomes very precise. Because up until this point, most of what has happened has been beyond your control. The whisper came without planning. A delay unfolded without your direction. The preparation happened in ways you could not see. Even the approval itself was not something you initiated in your visible world. But now you are being brought into alignment with what has already been set in motion. And this is where your awareness matters more than ever. Because when something is about to move from the unseen into the seen, there is always a moment of alignment required. Not effort, not struggle, not forcing outcomes, but alignment. A state where your thoughts, your reactions, your decisions, and your focus begin to match what is already approaching you. This is the part many people overlook. They expect everything to simply arrive without any internal shift on their part. They expect the external manifestation to do all the work. But what is coming to you requires participation, not in the sense of effort, but in the sense of readiness. You must be in a position to receive it, and that begins with clarity. There are things in your life right now that no longer align with where you are being taken. You have already started to feel this. Certain habits, certain patterns, certain ways of thinking no longer feel natural. They feel forced, outdated, disconnected from the version of you that is emerging. This is not something to ignore. This is your signal. Because alignment often requires release. Not dramatic release. Not sudden disconnection from everything you have known. But a quiet, intentional shift away from what no longer fits. You may feel drawn to create more space. You may feel the need to step back from certain environments. You may notice yourself becoming more selective about where you place your energy, your attention, your time. That is not withdrawal. That is preparation. Because what is coming into your life cannot fully integrate if you are still holding on to things that conflict with it. And this is where honesty becomes essential. You must be honest with yourself about what still belongs and what does not. Not based on habit, not based on comfort, but based on alignment. Because the more you hold on to what is misaligned, the more resistance you create to what is trying to reach you. And the opposite is also true. The more you allow yourself to release what no longer fits, the more naturally everything else begins to move into place. This is why you may feel a sense of urgency now. Not pressure, but awareness. A quiet understanding that something is close, and that your current state matters. That what you choose now, how you respond now, how you position yourself now, has a direct impact on how smoothly this transition unfolds. And Archangel Michael is very clear in this moment. Do not overcomplicate this. Alignment is not about becoming someone completely different overnight. It is about returning to clarity, returning to what feels true, returning to what you already sense is right for you, even if you have been ignoring it. You already know where your energy has been misplaced. You already know where you have been holding on to things out of habit rather than purpose. You already know what feels heavy instead of aligned. And now you are being asked to respond to that awareness. Not with fear, not with hesitation, but with quiet confidence. Because this is not about losing something. It is about making space for something greater. And as you do this, something else will begin to happen. Your clarity will sharpen. Your intuition will strengthen. Your ability to recognize what is aligned will become stronger. And when what has been approved begins to appear, you will not question it. You will recognize it immediately, because you have already aligned yourself with it before it fully arrived. This is the final alignment. Not a test of effort, but a confirmation of readiness. And the more you move with this awareness, the more everything will begin to feel natural. Not forced, not overwhelming, but precise. As if everything is falling into place exactly when it is meant to. Because it is. So trust what you are feeling now. Trust the need for clarity. Trust the pull toward alignment. Because it is not random. It is preparation for something that is no longer distant. It is already on its way. Type "I am aligned" in the comments if you are ready to step fully into this moment. Lesson code 2424 is now activating divine alignment across your life. And as this alignment begins to take place within you, understand this. What is flowing through this message is not meant to stop with you. It is meant to reach the ones who are still waiting in confusion, still standing at the edge of their own breakthrough. Scripture declares, "Give, and it shall be given unto you. Pressed down, shaken together, and running over." And this is not just a promise. It is a living invitation. I feel led to say this clearly. When you give into this moment, you are stepping into the same flow of alignment that is positioning your own blessing. This is not just an act of support. It is a prophetic response to what God is doing through you right now. There is a PayPal link in the description and a QR code on your screen, and as you act, you become part of something far greater than yourself. Your seed becomes a light that reaches another soul before they lose hope. So move now, not later, and let your obedience open doors that no delay can close. Now listen carefully, because this is where everything becomes extremely sensitive. Whenever something significant is about to manifest, whenever something that has been delayed suddenly begins to move, there is always one final phase that most people do not recognize in the moment. It does not look like opposition. It does not feel like resistance in the way you would expect. It appears as distraction. Subtle. Timed. Precise. And if you are not aware of it, you can mistake it for something important, something urgent, something that requires your immediate attention. But it is not what it appears to be. Because when something has already been approved, when something has already been sealed, it cannot be stopped directly. That phase has passed. What remains is not the ability to block it, but the attempt to redirect you away from recognizing it. That is the strategy. Not to take it from you, but to pull your focus away from it. And this is where you must become very still internally, because the distractions that come now will not look negative. They will not feel obviously wrong. In fact, some of them may even feel familiar, comfortable, convincing enough to make you pause what you are doing and turn your attention elsewhere. You may suddenly feel pulled into situations that drain your energy. You may find yourself revisiting thoughts, conversations, or patterns that you had already moved past. You may notice unexpected emotional triggers, moments where your focus shifts away from clarity and back into confusion. This is not random. This is timing. Because distraction before breakthrough is always designed to feel justified. It will present itself as something you need to fix, something you need to respond to, something you need to figure out immediately. And if you engage with it without awareness, it can delay your recognition of what is actually happening. Not stop it, but delay it. And delay creates doubt. And doubt creates hesitation. And hesitation can cause you to miss the moment when everything aligns in front of you. That is why this warning matters so much. Because you are not being asked to fight anything. You are being asked to stay focused, to stay grounded, to stay aware of what is real and what is simply pulling your attention away. There is a difference between what is aligned and what is distracting you from alignment. And right now, that difference is subtle. So subtle that only your awareness can distinguish it. You may feel moments where your energy suddenly drops without a clear reason. Moments where your clarity becomes clouded. Moments where you feel pulled to react instead of observe. Those are the moments where you must pause. Not react. Not engage immediately. But observe. Because what is aligned with you will not create confusion. It will not rush you into reaction. It will not pull you into unnecessary emotional cycles. What is aligned with you will feel steady, even if it is unexpected. Clear, even if it is new. Grounded, even if it is unfamiliar. And this is the standard you must hold now. Because the closer something gets, the more important your awareness becomes. You are not being tested in your strength. You are being tested in your focus, in your ability to remain aligned even when something tries to pull you slightly off center. Because it does not take a major shift to create delay. It only takes a small misalignment at the wrong moment. A moment of distraction. A moment of doubt. A moment of reaction. And that is what you are being prepared to avoid. Not through effort, but through awareness. Through stillness. Through trust in what you already feel. Because deep down you already know what is real. You already know what is aligned. You already know what feels right without needing to analyze it. And now, you are being asked to trust that. To stay with it. To not abandon it when something tries to pull your attention away. Because what is coming does not need your force. It needs your presence. It needs your clarity. It needs your awareness at the exact moment it appears. And that moment is closer than it has ever been. So when distraction appears, do not give it power. Do not give it your full attention. Recognize it for what it is. A final attempt to redirect your focus away from something that has already been secured. Because what has been approved cannot be undone. It can only be missed if you are not aware. And you are being made aware now so that you do not miss it. So that when it appears, you are present. You are clear. You are ready. Type I stay focused in the comments if you are choosing clarity over distraction. Blessing code 2525 is now activating unwavering focus and protection over your path. Now comes the part you have been unknowingly preparing for the moment of arrival. But here is where you must release every rigid expectation you have been holding onto. Because what is about to manifest will not follow the exact script your mind created months ago. It will not arrive with a label that clearly says, "This is what you asked for." It will not always announce itself in a way that immediately removes all doubt. In fact, it may come in quietly. So quietly that if you are not present, if you are not aware, you might almost overlook it. This is how precision works. It does not force itself into your awareness. It presents itself and allows you to recognize it. That is why everything you have gone through up until now matters so much. Because the moment of arrival is not just about the thing itself. It is about your ability to recognize it when it appears. You may find that it comes through a conversation. Something simple. Something unexpected. A moment that feels ordinary on the surface, but carries a deeper weight the moment you hear it. A sentence, a response, an opportunity that seems small at first, but stays with you longer than it should. Or it may come through an opening. A situation that presents itself without force. A path that becomes available without struggle. Something that does not require you to push or convince, but simply to step forward and accept. And when that happens, you will feel something very specific. Not confusion, not pressure, but recognition. A quiet certainty that does not need to be explained. A feeling that says this is it, even if it does not look exactly the way you imagined. Even if it feels different from what you expected. That recognition is your confirmation. And this is where many people make a mistake. They hesitate. They begin to analyze. They try to compare what is in front of them with what they originally thought it would look like. And in doing so, they create distance between themselves and the moment. But you are not being led into hesitation. You are being led into recognition. Because what is coming to you will not need to be forced. It will not require you to struggle to make it fit. It will align naturally with the shift you have already been feeling. That is how you will know. It will feel like something you have already connected with internally, now appearing externally. It will feel familiar, even if it is new. And at the same time, there may be an element of surprise. Because while your spirit recognizes it, your mind may still be catching up. You may think, I didn't expect it to come like this. But that is exactly how it was designed. To bypass your expectations and arrive in its true form. Not the limited version you imagine, but the complete version that was approved. And this is where trust becomes essential. Because the moment of arrival does not wait for you to fully understand it. It invites you to step into it. You accept it. To move with it. Without overcomplicating it. Without trying to control every detail of how it unfolds. Because the more you try to control it, the more you move away from the natural flow of what has already been aligned for you. So when it appears, do not rush to define it immediately. Do not rush to explain it to yourself or to others. Allow it to unfold. Allow it to reveal itself step by step. Because what had been prepared for you is not just a single moment. It is a sequence. One step leading to the next. One alignment revealing another. And the first step is recognition. Seeing it. Feeling it. Knowing it. Without needing immediate proof. Without needing external validation. Because the validation has already been given. The approval has already been sealed. And now, it is simply moving into your reality. So stay present. Stay aware. Stay open to the way it arrives, not just the idea of it. Because the moment of arrival is not something you will need to chase. It is something you will encounter. And when you do, you will know. Not because someone tells you, but because something inside you confirms it instantly. This is the moment you have been prepared for, and it is no longer distant. It is here. Type I recognize IT in the comments if you are ready to receive and step into what is arriving. Blessing code 2626 is now activating clear recognition and divine reception in your life. Now you must understand something that goes beyond the wish itself. Because this was never just about what you asked for. It was about who you are. And why you were the one who carried that whisper in the first place. You could have ignored it. You could have dismissed it completely. You could have allowed it to disappear without ever returning to it. But something within you held on to it, even if only faintly, even if only subconsciously. That was not accidental. That was identity. Because not everyone receives the same kind of whispers. Not everyone feels the same kind of pull. Not everyone is entrusted with something that originates from a place deeper than logic. And the fact that you experienced that moment at all means something very specific. You were meant to. There is a reason it came to you and not someone else. There is a reason it stayed with you even when you thought you had moved on. There is a reason it is now returning at a time when you are able to understand it differently. Because this is not just about receiving something. It is about stepping into something. A role, a position, a level of awareness that you did not fully occupy before. And that is why everything around this has felt so intentional. Because what is unfolding is connected to your purpose in a way that you are only now beginning to recognize. You are not being given something random. You are being given something aligned. Something that fits into a larger pattern that has been forming in your life for longer than you realized. And when you look back, you may begin to see it. Moments where you were guided in certain directions. Experiences that shaped how you think, how you respond, how you perceive things. situations that challenged you, stretched you, forced you to grow in ways that did not make sense at the time. All of those moments were part of the preparation, not just for the outcome, but for you. Because what is coming into your life is not separate from who you are becoming. It is connected to it. It requires it. And that is why you had to become more aware, more grounded, more aligned before this moment could fully unfold. This is what it means to be chosen. Not in a way that separates you from others, but in a way that assigns you to something specific, something that matches your path, your experiences, your internal development. And that is why you must not minimize what is happening now. Do not reduce it to coincidence. Do not dismiss it as something that could have happened to anyone, because it did. It happened to you, and that matters. Because being chosen is not just about receiving, it is about responsibility, not in a heavy or overwhelming way, but in a conscious way, an awareness that what you are stepping into is meaningful, that it has impact, that it connects to something beyond the immediate moment. And this is where your mindset becomes essential. Because if you see this only as a personal gain, you may limit how you engage with it. But if you see it as alignment with your purpose, you begin to move differently. You begin to recognize that this is not just something for you to have. It is something for you to step into, to embody, to allow it to influence how you move forward from this point on. And that is why the preparation have been so precise. Because you are not just being given something to hold. You are being placed into a position to carry it, to use it, to move with it, in a way that reflects the alignment that has been created for you. And this is also why the process required patience, because stepping into something meaningful requires readiness, not just externally but internally. And now, that readiness is present. You may not feel completely certain. You may not feel like everything is perfectly clear, but you are ready in the way that matters. Ready to recognize, ready to receive, ready to move forward without returning to the mindset that kept you waiting before. And that is what changes everything. Because once you step into this awareness, you do not go back. You do not return to seeing things the same way. You begin to understand that what is happening is not isolated. It is part of something larger. Something that is unfolding through you, not just for you. And that is where the true significance lies. So do not question why you. Do not wonder if this could have been meant for someone else. Do not hesitate to accept what is being aligned for you now, because you were always the one meant to carry this. You were always the one meant to recognize it. You were always the one meant to step into it. And now, that moment has arrived. Type "I am chosen for this" in the comments if you accept your role in what is unfolding. Blessing Po 2727 is now activating purpose and clarity across your path. Now listen and do not let your mind rush past this moment. Because this is where everything becomes final. Not in your physical world yet, but in the realm where outcomes are decided before they are revealed. It is done. Not almost done. Not in progress. Not waiting for one more condition to be met. It is done. This is the part where many people struggle to fully receive what is being said. Because your senses are trained to believe what you can see, what you can touch, what you can measure. And when something is declared complete without visible proof, the mind tries to question it. But this is where you must shift your understanding. Because completion in the spirit always comes before manifestation in the natural. And what has been spoken over you now has already reached completion. The moment the approval was sealed, the outcome was established. The moment alignment was reached, the path was set, The moment the process concluded, the result became inevitable. And now, what remains is not whether it will happen but how it will appear. That is the only variable left. Because once something is done in the spirit, it begins to move into your reality through a sequence that cannot be reversed. It may unfold quickly. It may unfold step by step. It may arrive in a way that feels sudden or in a way that feels gradual. But none of that changes the truth. It is already done. And this is why you are being called into stillness now. Not passive waiting, but a confident stillness. A kind of stillness that does not come from uncertainty, but from knowing. Knowing that you do not need to force anything. Knowing that you do not need to chase anything. And knowing that what is meant for you is already moving toward you. This is the shift. From seeking to receiving. From questioning to trusting. From wondering to knowing. And Archangel Michael stands in this moment not as a messenger of possibility, but as a witness to completion. He does not come to suggest. He comes to declare. And the declaration is clear. What you whispered has been heard. What you carried has been honored. What you aligned with has been approved. And what has been approved is now being released. There is nothing left for you to prove. Nothing left for you to earn. Nothing left for you to figure out. Because the outcome is no longer dependent on your effort. It is anchored in what has already been decided. And this is where your role becomes simple, but powerful. You receive. Not with doubt. Not with hesitation. But with clarity. You allow. Not by forcing outcomes, but by remaining open. You trust. Not because you see everything yet, but because you know what has already been established. And when you move from this place, everything begins to feel different. You no longer react the same way. You no longer question the same way. You no longer chase the same way. Because you are no longer trying to make something happen. You are witnessing something unfold. And that changes everything. Because what unfolds from a place of completion carries a different kind of energy. It is steady. It is certain. It does not need to prove itself. It simply arrives exactly as it was meant to. So as you move forward from this moment, carry this awareness with you. Not as something you hope is true, but as something you know is already done. Because this is not a possibility anymore. This is a reality moving toward you. And nothing that was meant to interfere still holds the authority to do so. Because what is done ought be undone, and what has been released will reach you. Type IT is done in the comments if you receive this final declaration. Blessing code 3030 is now sealing divine manifestation over your life. And as you stand in this moment of completion, understand this truth. What God has begun in you is not meant to remain hidden. It is meant to flow like a river into the lives of others who are still waiting for their sign. The word says, "Cast your bread upon the waters, and it shall return to you multiplied." And today, your giving becomes that living seed, carried into places you may never see but heaven always counts. I hear this clearly in the Spirit. When you act now, you are not giving out of obligation. You are responding to a divine moment that has already marked your life for increase. This is your opportunity to partner with the very flow that just aligned your breakthrough. The PayPal link in the description and the QR code on your screen are not just auctions. They are gateways for you to step into obedience and expansion. As you sow, heaven releases back into your life with precision, with favor, with doors that no man can close. So move now, without hesitation, and let your seed speak in the Spirit louder than words ever could.